Good evening. Incidentally, this is my 52nd long form episode. When I look back, just the number seems humongous, considering that shows that I've been fairly consistent. I think I started the first podcast August 23rd last year, just as a casual experiment to share my thoughts on topics that I think was relevant and might add value to people, even if to very few. So today it's almost 2 days away from the anniversary, but yeah, 52nd you can say is that I've probably done one video every week. That's remarkably consistent, something that I'm extremely proud of. There have been a lot of contents which have been quite poor, way below average. Some contents have been good, but hasn't really got the amount of views that I think they should have. But that's just part and parcel of the game. What I figured out of this experience of the last 1 year is that you should do content that you think is relevant, and you should be happy doing that more than anything. There have been a lot of times when people have made me doubt that your content is very slow and long, makes people think quite a bit, which people are not ready for in the lack of attention span kind of a world. Sometimes it was those influences tend to make you question yourself if you're doing the right thing. But then I got the answer myself by talking to myself and figuring that, hey, this is the form that I actually enjoy doing. I don't look at the clock. I just talk what I think comes to me naturally with all the mistakes. And it's been a great experience sharing my thoughts to, I think now it's 183 or 184 people. Yeah, it's been slow, but it's okay. I'm not someone who can remove my skin and show my skin and dance. Maybe I would have got more viewers, but that's how it goes. I'd probably, look forward to doing another year and hopefully share more of my thoughts and knowledge. All right. And of course, talk to more interesting people as I've been doing. Today, I picked something that I thought was quite interesting and maybe a little even controversial for some people. I'm hoping that you'll like it. It's about two things. It's about love and the conditionality of it, or the unconditionality of love, right? So I'm going to argue on 2 points. One is, does love exist? Is it true? And the second point is, does unconditional love exist in the relationship? And is it necessary for a relationship? When I say relationship, I'm looking at a spousal relationship, husband, wife, man, woman love. And we'll also touch upon the unconditionality of it, if it exists, and in what cases, and if there are any strings attached to it. Let's go. So I think this basically comes from the fact that when I talk to a lot of people, including, let's say, my own wife, or parents, or sisters, and friends, a lot of them this comes. Okay, I love this. I love my puppy. I love my wife, dog, husband, etc. Then I started questioning, like, does it really exist? How is love really defined? And when I started digging more into it, I figured there was no clear answer. Possibly because I asked these people themselves who said, this is what is love. And I said, can you define love? And in 99 out of 100 cases, I have not seen anyone define what is love. Uh, which just means that it's probably harder to describe, or it doesn't exist, or people find it difficult to explain. I don't know what the right answer is, but we'll look at that. The second one we need to look at is, does love exist? And apart from that, is it very unconditional in a married, let's say, relationship? Does it change? Or are there any silent terms and conditions associated with the relationship even surviving, right? Those are the things I want to explore. We will also look at the essentiality of it and like what's been sold to us so far. Cool. Now, to point number one, as the word love, right? You can Google it, and you can just ask, Google or any chat tools or AI tools, what exactly is love, or ask some people. I haven't really found a clear answer to it so far. People might say it's an extreme care or affection, kindness. I tend to think that is just superlative form of some of these words that forms a bond called love. It does come in some form, but the crux of the matter is, I do think that pure love is actually a myth. Uh, and the reason is it's not just because people cannot define what it is, because we know it is a superlative form of some of these words and their combination in some parts, which leads to some kind of super bonding that you like the person a lot. Again, it comes to the fact that there is like, there is kindness, there is affection, there is care, there is possibly physical intimacy and attraction. It's just a bunch of these things is what it looks like to me, along with some expectations, right? But what exactly is happening, right? If you look at what happens to you, or what kind of drives you to think that you're in love with someone, it can be a person or an animal or anything that you felt love towards, or you felt you received it from someone, right? These are the two possible cases. What is actually happening is it's a chemical reaction from your brain. Right? When I say chemical reaction, what is actually happening? Your brain releases dopamine. We exactly know what dopamine is. It's the same thing that's triggered when you have sex, when you gamble, or you do cocaine, nicotine, eat sweets, etc. It's one of the neurotransmitters. That's dopamine. When you think more about the person or someone that you like, and your mood improves, it's mostly your serotonin that comes in. And then there is oxytocin, which is a pair bonding, let's say, hormone, which, and then all three of them together gives you a very ecstatic kind of a state. That possibly is the feeling that we call as love. Now, I was very careful in choosing this word called feeling, because due to some combinations of these chemicals, maybe there are more, I don't know, but I'm sure these chemicals are, or neurotransmitters are clearly involved. With some combination of these things, you are getting a potentially fleeting feeling called love. It's exactly what it is, right? It's actually a feeling due to something that actually happened. This is the same thing as feeling happy, right? So something happened which made your brain release some of these hormones or neurotransmitters, which then told you that you possibly are in love. And that's because people have told you this is what love is. I don't know what the definition is. So essentially, I tend to think that anything that's a feeling, it's ephemeral or temporary. It cannot be something that's permanent. So that's my argument to say that love is probably a myth, or it exists conditionally depending on certain satisfactory events or actions leading to this outcome of you feeling some kind of a true love, or essentially it's a chemical cocktail, right? It just feels divine, because you have to feel that way. Evolutionarily, you wouldn't survive if you didn't feel that towards a person, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't marry, you wouldn't procreate, and your genetics would not survive, nor your species would, grow or expand, right? That's yeah, nature's trick to make you pair and reproduce, which is fundamental reason why humans exist and even marry. Of course, needless to say, these chemicals are dependent on multiple other conditions, which, if all of them are satisfied, leads to this chemical secretions and this chemical cocktail, which otherwise, if some of these conditions are not satisfied, it's not going to happen, which is why you feel love towards a person some minute, and in the next minute, you may not feel love towards a person, but we'll come to that. Yeah, essentially, I'm just saying that love depends on some conditions and the condition of your being at that particular time. There's another argument, right? If, let's say, love is true and that it is also unconditional, that's when I say, oh, I'm deeply in love with this person, all right? I'm going to marry, and our love is unconditional. If that's the case, no love marriages should dissolve, right? There should be no divorces, and all of them should necessarily stay together, because it's not conditional on or on anything. But that is not the case. And typically, if you take even US, or now in India, it's a bit more, even though the divorce rates are low. Almost 50% of the marriages end in divorce, right? And about 70% of them are initiated by women, and 15% is roughly mutual, and the remaining 15% is usually by men. But if you look at it, if 50% of the marriages are ending in divorce, and mostly in US, it tends to be love marriages, I would think too. Why are they then failing? I don't think people have answers to it, because the real answer is love didn't exist. and the fact that love can change and the conditions have changed, the persons have grown, the persons themselves have changed in the relationships. With that being the condition, the love is not going to exist. Let's say the man stopped working and stopped providing for the family. Is the girl still going to respect him and make love to him and want to live with him? That's a question that she's going to consistently ask, and we'll get a little deeper into that in a little bit. But the point I'm trying to make is this unconditionality part is kind of not true. It is conditional on certain obligations that the man has towards the family and the girl has towards the family, right? What typically is it from an evolutionary point of view? If you saw that a man had to protect and provide, and the lady, woman, had to carry his genes and be loyal to him. That's raise the family, right? These conditions again in today's parlance, things have changed a little bit with different with both providing and you don't really need a protection because the tiger is not chasing you or there's no elephant trying to trample you. But then again, evolutionarily, we haven't really changed. The woman is still expecting the same, and the man is still expecting the same. Just that we fake and act delusionally thinking that that is not the case today, whereas nothing really has changed. Great. So this brings us to the point that I would actually argue, and I want people to actually understand, particularly men that I've interacted with, they tend to believe that the female's love to them, towards them, is actually true and pure. I want you people to understand that it's not the case. Her love towards you is purely transactional. So is your love towards her on some conditions, right? So these relationships, whether it's a marriage or a long-term romantic relationship, is actually very, very conditional and also transactional. So when I say transactional, it is about the man providing or operating certain conditions, and then the women saying that this is my part of the bargain, I'll hold it up. That is how the relationship is actually established. There's a lot of give and take. There is a lot of efforts from both the sides. What are we trading here? We're trading security, we're trading companionship, intimacy, social status, the joy of raising kids, for example, the act of spending time together on trips or at home, and going through life, which itself is quite chaotic and interesting. Right? That is what you're essentially signing up for as a couple. And whether it's Bible or any religious text, they'll make you wow. And if not signing, they'll tell you to wow, right? In either in front of a fire or a fire, or it could be in Bible's case, maybe some other form, maybe a book or water. I don't know. But essentially, what are they? Why are they doing that? They themselves know that the love is not going to carry your life till what do you call it, till death does it apart, something like that. They knew that this was not the case. That's why they made you vow and take a promise in front of the God. Just think about it. Otherwise, love would just carry you forever. You don't need it, right? And even if you look at a lot of bit of neuroscience, they figured that love was not even essential for a marriage, in the sense that you never had to look at the person and think, "Oh, I'm in love with that girl," or the girl never felt it for you, right? When I say arranged marriages of those days, couple of generations back, now it's a little different. But arranged marriages tend to have a higher success rate because the love essentially took time to develop, as in the pair bonding maybe took 5 years, maybe took 10 years, but they never felt like leaving each other, not because there was lack of love, but that was because there was no hate. People just like being with each other. And that might potentially happen even with most people that you end up living with if you are living long enough, just like that, Stockholm syndrome, as they call it, right? Anyway, I tend to go here and there sometimes. Sorry about that. But yeah, coming back to the transactional aspects, the man signs up for the marriage and the woman signs up the marriage, agreeing to hold their end of the bargain. So don't delude himself into thinking, guys and girls, that oh, this is unconditional love. My husband is going to love me forever, irrespective of however I am or however I'm going to even look. The same way it's for the husband, thinking that oh, the wife loves you unconditionally. No, there have been numerous studies, in fact, showing that women already have backups. In which case, if you bail out and run, they need to have a backup. There's a lot of studies. Just Google, you will find out. But that's not the intent of this discussions, right? Yeah. So these are points that I want to mention, that about the transactional aspect of it. The unconditionality doesn't exist, and the fact that love itself is a myth, or it's at best temporary and ephemeral. It may come and go. It may come and go depending on certain conditions being met. Now, then people might think, why are you taking such a very cynical angle towards life and love? What should I do? Is there nothing like true love? It's so disappointing. I've been sold a lot of bunch of hogwash by all Disney movies and Bollywood's romantic movies. Like, what happened to that? Your Dil Se and Majnus and other things. What is happening to that? So I think the only form of recognized true unconditional love cited often is the parent child bond. And even that has been shown to be slightly conditional as people age. And I do tend to think that the mother kid bond is probably the purest. And then comes the father and child bond, which is, exactly, just think about it logically, right? If unconditional love towards your spouse was true, you wouldn't leave at all. Whereas you don't tend to leave your kids, even if the spouse separate due to whatever reason they may have. I don't like you, become fat, you're unproductive, you're a drunkard, you're a addict, a criminal, whatever the case may be, right? People tend to separate easily quite these days, right? 50% divorce rates, and it's just increasing rapidly. Why are they taking the kids along? Why don't you just leave the kids? That's where the unconditional love seems to play a very, very predominant role. That seems to be the only recorded form. And I think I have felt it with my kids for sure, right? Whether I feel it with my spouse or not, that's different. In fact, I don't personally think it's essential, but there's something that happens when I see the kids. Uh, I think that's probably what I can call as the purest or closest form of unconditional love. And that also is kind of temporary, right? There are conditions in which I've actually not liked my kids due to, let's say, certain behaviors that they've done or some actions that they do or some habits that they have which may not necessarily make you like them. And the same thing with your parents and the same thing with your sisters, spouse, and relationships. This is nothing different. But the kid part seems to be a slightly different, which is very well documented in evolution and history. That seems to be the only form of close to true love, sorry, not true love, true love that one can actually hope for, right? In all other relationships, just like any business transaction, there is an expectation inevitably on both the sides, financial, shared goals, respects, everything, right? Okay, cool. We spoke about divorce rates. Let me see what are the notes I've written. Transactional later. Okay, cool. I think there's something that I wanted to speak about. Yeah, there's a guy called Robert Sternberg's triangular theory of love defines love as a balance of intimacy, passion, and commitment, all of which shift with time. Brilliant. I think he's written this in 1985. I just Googled, but I wrote down so that I can talk to you about it. Different combinations of these three components can lead to various forms of love, ranging from liking to infatuation to consummate love. Now, of course, it's pretty clear. People confuse lust, attachment, infatuation, and companionship with love, making it very, very hard to define. But I think I kind of tend to agree with the triangular theory of love. Seems pretty interesting that the fact that it changes with time and it's a different form of love depending on what kind of concoction your brain is going to make. Cool. That's pretty much on it. What else did I have to say about this? Yeah, I think transactional part, you give loyalty, you expect financial security. Yeah, social exchange theory in psychology. Yeah, people stay in relationships when the rewards outweigh the cost. When the balance flips, love feels broken. So, yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about, the transactional nature. If one side feels that I am the only one who's holding my end of the bargain and the other side doesn't, then the word love goes out of the window. So exactly. So these things can be pure, this unconditional love, or great for movies, or great for talking with each other. It's awesome. I tend to think that it's a poetic fantasy at best. It can probably make you feel good for some time. That's about it. I think I'll just end it with a wonderful quote from Mad Men, one of the series that I really liked a lot. I think I watched it 4 5 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. I don't remember. There's a line in which Don Draper is having dinner with a very pretty woman, as he always does. I know they talk a little bit about love and the fact that she isn't really married yet, and then she says maybe I haven't really fallen in love. And Don, in his usual inimitable style, And then, just goes and says, the reason you haven't felt love is because it doesn't exist. What you call love was invented by guys like me to sell nylons. You're born alone and you die alone, and the world just drops a bunch of rules on top of you to make you forget those facts, right? So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If this can be a potential cause of discussion between you and your spouse, or your lover, your parent, or a child, yeah, feel free. Maybe, take these points and see how the argument holds up. Yeah, and share your thoughts on what do you think about it, man. I mean, what conditions do you think matters to you for the relationship to even continue, whether you're a man or a woman? I would look forward to hearing from you. And if you do like my content, consider subscribing, liking, and referring your friends to watch my videos if you like them. I'll see you maybe Sunday or next week with another one. Happy anniversary, guys. Cheers. Bye. Thanks for watching.